The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your Insta. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And Dave.
Hi.
I almost didn't answer you. Like, you so often say Dave first that I was like,
You're
waiting.
What? Yeah.
Caught off guard.
Yeah. Decided to shake it up a little bit. So we have another fun filled episode for you guys this week. A few community topics we wanted to touch on, and then, of course, the lovely GPs that happened over the weekend. And then we actually have a question of the week, and then, do our typical wrap-up stuff there towards the end. But let's dive right into our community segment. So, first and foremost, we have the full Eternal Masters spoiler, and just wanted to kind of give a cursory overview of it. If you want, you can go to Wizards' website or wherever you want to look at your cards that get released that are upcoming. Check them out, see what's what. But do we have any favorite cards that are going to be printed again?
I like Mindless Automaton because it's uncommon in this set, and I get to put it in my cube now, so it's sweet. That's not the most powerful card, but it's a sweet throwback.
Fair enough.
Favorite cards. Young Pyromancer? Is it too soon to say Young Pyromancer? Anytime I see so that card was fun to play with and fun to draft when it was first printed. Now it gets to be essentially a cube-like set. Oh man, it's so sweet.
I'd be. I wonder who's played that card more, you in Standard or me in Modern?
I played it in Modern some too, so
okay, so you probably play it more.
Give it a couple months and you'll pull ahead, but I think we're still probably close.
Well,
to
I'm not playing it anymore.
Give it time. Baby, come back.
No,
You can
blind flip all. Oh no, is that not? Blame it, blind flip. It's all the same.
On me. Anyway, it's interesting because I don't necessarily have the history that you guys have with these sets. So a lot of these cards I haven't ever played are in limited or what have you, or I've played in cubes and stuff like that. So I don't have the context around them. But some cool ones that I know a lot of other people are going to be excited for is Cabal Therapy getting a reprint, especially with that particular art because it's never been printed in just a non-foil, non-premium foil, deck series, version of that art. And I really like that art, but I really like the color green in general, so it's very, very heavy in that. I think something like Entomb, which again, was in that premium deck series, but different art. I think stuff like that. But I don't necessarily have anything that I'm like, oh yes, I can't wait to play with that again. I think a lot of these cards also change the Pauper format, which is pretty awesome. So that might be something that I look into potentially, just because it's relatively inexpensive comparatively, for Magic Online, and it is a fun format from what I hear. So I think that's probably the cool thing about this set too, other than just a lot of expensive cards getting reprinted.
how do you feel about the new art Mog War Marshal?
I like it. I think it's fine.
You don't have any special attachment to that one?
I want a foil of it. Obviously, I have a very special attachment to it, as it is my Twitter handle, at least a modified version of it. But no, I like it. I think it's cool. I mean, the original art of that card is not anything to shake a stick at or anything. So the new art, it's not like I'm offended or anything like that. How some people are overreacting to some of these cards.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is cool is they really did seem to take this opportunity. We saw it in the first wave, but it was hard to say how much it would be. There's a ton of new art in this set, especially for cards that have what I was going to focus on. You mentioned the Cabal Therapy getting a regular Deep Analysis with the sweet Nicobolas art.
Oh yeah,
I think it's the first time it's getting a foil in that art. Mm-hmm. So they pick some cool ones to switch the art on, where it's you could get the pack full if you wanted to, but if you're going to get a different art, it does seem like they really seem to appeal to cube enthusiasts and EDH players too, by saying here's some new art that's foil, things like Squadron Hawk, they use the F&M foil, but if you didn't want the gaudy Friday Night Magic stamp, because that one had the really where they, for the few months where they used the giant stamp on the art in the bottom right corner, it says
well,
F&M.
Yeah, that one. It wasn't in the text box. It was on the actual art.
It's actually in the actual art. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Yeah.
So now you can get it without that. So
I
it's kind
think
of cool.
Pyroblast and Hydroblast, which are
yeah.
those are
So sweet.
First of all, great art for those cards, and then like the first time being foil, man, those are going to be like many dollars, so many dollars.
Yeah, I'm excited to add some more cards that haven't had foils before to my cube.
Yeah.
So Baleful Strix, Beetleback Chief, Worn Power Stone are all getting
Nice.
first time foil.
And then I'm pretty appreciative of this set just for the sheer fact that again, Price of Progress and Chain Lightning are uncommon, and you need those for Legacy burns. So I'm okay with that. Perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Another one I wanted to mention, you mentioned for Popper as well, is Nimble Mongoose. I actually really like the new art.
He's got a sneaky snake.
He's eating the cobra. There definitely is some honey badger sweet inspiration in this. But yeah, I think that's a sweet Popper card, and a card that a lot of people want in foil, and one of the few that people may actually want over the pack foil. Now, I know some people are going to say, no, that's blasphemy. I get it. But I think this art is pretty sweet.
I would be one of those people.
Oh. Yep.
I'm kind of like an old border foil snob. And
I'm so glad this game's lasted long enough that we can have those.
Yeah, and an original art snob. So like, I usually prefer the original art no matter what.
Well, at least they met you in the middle on your Worn Power Stone.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot of cool stuff. And, a lot of cool, like, archetypes are really, coming out as being something that you can do in this format. And a lot of, like, crossover cards that, can really be impactful regardless of what you're doing within the, draft that you're having. It is a shame, I think, that this set is going to be pretty limited, and who knows how many times you actually are going to be able to draft it if you are able to draft it, which I think is actually really unfortunate.
Yeah, I do want to point out that while there's a lot of really good value in this, pretty much everyone who's done a box value write-up on this, Saffron Olive, Chase Andres, have all said that honestly it's about MSRP.
Yeah.
So the stores that are charging you well above MSRP, sometimes $100 above MSRP, you're terrible. And it's meant to be like there. We had a post in our local community on a Facebook group where a guy made a pretty impassioned plea saying that like I don't care what what you want to do with your box. I don't care if you're going to open all your packs and sell everything. Call 8 people and draft it first. Like, and I really appreciated that idea. It's like, I don't care what you're going to do with it. Sell all the stuff when you're done. But don't deny the play experience when you have people so desperate for it. Like, I hope people do get to draft the format a couple times without having to, like, break the bank to do so. So I thought it was a nice plea. I'll say the same thing to the community. You've got people that want to draft this. Find, 8 or 7 trustworthy people. I understand that. Like, I don't know if you should be picking randos. Like, hey, you want to touch this? But at the same time, like, draft it.
Yeah.
You saying your limited experience may be limited?
Yes, that is what we're saying. And
yeah,
it's
the battery's not included. Exactly.
it's very very unfortunate. So if you are coming to GP Columbus, that might be an opportunity to do that. Maybe. I don't know what kind of side events they're necessarily going to be having at GP Columbus at this point in time. I know that some of them will involve Eternal Masters, so I think that's my game plan for that weekend. In all honesty, because I would much rather have a shot at opening an awesome card or having like an awesome story to share. I'm not saying that I couldn't get that from playing in the constructed event, but you hear it at your instep. We don't play a lot of Legacy. It's not our forte. And we aren't experts on it in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of times, the stuff that comes out of our mouths about Legacy is just wrong.
We try, but
yeah, it's it's just like not really where we spend a lot of our time. So it's probably not where we're going to spend most of our time at the actual GP.
So with that, we should move on from Eternal Masters.
Yes.
All right.
So over the weekend, there was a bit of a sticky situation. I'm gonna butcher. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying this man's name.
Don't worry, you won't have to say it for a while.
Oh, that's awful. Fabrizio Interi. That's how I have to say it. Not to be offensive. Was disqualified and has since been banned was disqualified from GP Manchester and been banned due to cheating for 18 months, which is pretty rough. So, did you guys get a full breakdown of basically kind of what happened with the situation? From what I got, he was between games, correct, and was sideboarding. Something about separating of mana lands or something of that nature. Basically put his deck back together, didn't shuffle, and presented.
Yeah, something to that effect. Or, he basically moved cards around in his deck, didn't sufficiently randomize, and then presented it.
And this was in round 4, which means that, judges had been clued into this at some point in time, or had already known, theoretically.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming he had at least 2 buys, maybe
sure.
3. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he was suspended for 18 months tells me that this may have been something that they were watching for a while. I mean, a disqualification from a tournament's a pretty big deal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a chronic cheater.
Yeah.
The fact that he got suspended after the fact, tells me that there was more to the story that, we may not know.
Yes.
Right now. Yeah, I mean, it's a really unfortunate thing because he was actually leading in the Grand Prix Player of the Year race for the slot at the World Championships. So it's disappointing to see somebody that is that good, obviously, basically has the lead in in that race to go to the World Championships, do something like this, and it's really inexcusable. I mean, if trying to say it was accidental, I don't really buy it. Because,
no.
I mean, if you're playing at that high of a level, I mean, I think all of us know you got to shuffle your deck. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you forget to shuffle your deck. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was reading through his Facebook post again too, but suggesting that he said sometimes it happens, sometimes maybe 0.1% of the time, sometimes 10% of the time he just doesn't know, his head's in a different place. That comment alone actually may have incriminated him more. 0.1%, 10%, whoa. So you're saying 1 out of 10 games of Paper Magic you actively are cheating? That's,
I think I mean, it's one thing to say if you crack a fetch and then you're looking through your deck and you see 3 lightning bolts stuck together. You might separate them. I think we've all done something like that before. But I've never done that.
There is language against that, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it up. I don't know what it is.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, I know I've definitely done stuff like that before.
Yeah, but
I'm shuffling. Yeah, I'm shuffling
afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not stacking my deck and presenting it. I don't know if he was actually stacking his deck or just separating mana and then not shuffling. That sounded like that's more of what it was. Yeah. But in any case, you just got to be super careful with stuff like that, and especially if you're playing, if you're a professional Magic player, and you should know better.
Yeah, and I just reading through here, there's a lot of comments for people because obviously he's well known. And I read some of the Reddit stuff about this back and forth, and people suggesting that it's not his fault, it's up to the person he's presenting the deck to, or the judges were rushing him, and it's well, one, he says he does this, and he just didn't even realize it was an issue, but two, I don't know how you in the world you go to victim blaming on something like this.
Yeah.
So yes, you're supposed to shuffle your opponent's deck, but then we get into the realm of your opponent is a professional Magic player who you trust, who's supposed to be a role model, who's supposed to be blank and blank, right? Now, again, they don't always have to be that, but again, there is this idea of this person, there's this idea that you should trust this person because of their notoriety. So to insist that someone who could literally be starstruck playing against this person is then at fault for not or maybe you should shuffle your deck. I know that sounds crazy, but
yeah.
and I know I'm reiterating what you said here a little bit, Dave, but I do think it's sort of hilarious that some people are oh, well, they're just out to get you, and it's they're not out to get you if you're legitimately cheating. I hope you understand this isn't a pitchfork scenario. There was no coverage. There was no one there were no underground cage board dojo key fighters or whatever.
People breaking down the video.
You know what I mean? That wasn't happening. A judge saw this happening. It's pretty blatant. So. It's definitely upsetting, and I can definitely see being very disappointed. If you're a big fan, but to suggest anything otherwise seems a little foolish.
Yeah, to me, it feels almost when all the steroid allegations came out in baseball. It's just like, all right, who's really playing the game cleanly? Anybody who comes up, and obviously Fabrizio and Terry's had a pretty good couple years, and some GP wins, and a lot of high finishes, and he's done pretty well. And it's like, okay, how much of that was because he was possibly stacking his deck, or he's obviously a good player.
And here's the issue with that: any amount of it taints whatever it is.
Yeah,
right.
Because and I think your baseball analogy is very apt, because a lot of players have good seasons. A lot of players hit 40 or 50 home runs, right? But if you're looking at that percentage increase, right, then what's the difference for the person who's on steroids and then they're able to hit this much? It's like, it doesn't negate your ability, but it does create this unfair advantage. The same thing goes for a tournament. Like, it's really hard to top eight a long tournament because there's all these minuscule chances for you to lose games. Well, how many times did you gain this huge edge in a match because one of the 3 games you were guaranteed to have all of your to draw a spell and then a land and a spell then a land and a spell then a land.
Right.
So it's I think it's a really good analogy.
But it's almost like anybody that does well or that's like having a good season. But it's like it's what you're saying. But it's also just like, man, do I have to suspect like anybody who's top aided 2 or 3 GPs in the last 4? Like, are they a suspect now? Because it's just like, I don't know. It's really disappointing. But I'm glad that Wizards took action, really quickly. I mean, obviously the GP just happened over the weekend. It's now Wednesday, and it just came out that he was suspended. So they move quickly on it. And I guess that opens the door for a couple other players to take that GP slot for Worlds. Currently, Tomohiro Saito is leading. I believe he has 44 pro points. Or 44 GP points. I guess it goes by So Saito currently leads with 44. Reed Duke is in second with 42. And BBD is in third with 40. So that should be pretty interesting coming down the wire here until we get to Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Eldridge Moon. Yeah. I almost forgot.
And seeing how that shakes out. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. Moving on quickly, we did get a new F&M promo for August. It's going to be Crumbling Vestige. Now, the art is great. Again, with Special Contortion, the art was also great. Crumbling Vestige, meh. Cool.
They had a stretch where they were having like really good F&M promos, and like it's just been kind of. So we just had Goblin War
We're
Chief.
back to the norm.
I mean, Sylvan's Scrying is a good promo next month. It is.
Yeah.
It's a card that's in Standard, has seen how much play in Standard, and is like sees play in Modern.
It's unfortunate the art is not quite there.
It's fine.
It's meh, but I mean, I would rather have like foil of the Battle for Zendikar ones.
Sure,
that's just great art.
And Spatial Contortion, we already said, is good art, and it's already shown itself to be playable in multiple formats.
Yeah.
So these are not terrible. Crumbling Vestige, they could have literally just like drawn like, I don't know, like Gideon like sitting behind a bush, like doing his business, put in a foil. It's called the card blank, and it would have been as useful to me as Crumbling Vestige is going to be.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I actually like that card quite a bit, but it just hasn't really done anything in any constructed format.
Yeah, like the art is sweet. The card is a good design. But like as an F&M promo, like I feel like too, like the F&M promo, since like so many of them are given out randomly to people, like this should be the kind of cards that excite players, and they used to be like more often than not. Like they're not always great. They're certainly not. There's always going to be misses, but it does feel like like just like last summer, like we had like Serum Visions and Path, and those are the kind of cards that you want to give to a new player to be like oh hey, thanks for coming to F&M. You may have O4'd with your your bad brew or your draft deck. Here's a $10 card though. Right? That you can either use in other decks or possibly trade for these cards. And doesn't this free card I just gave you make you want to come back to F&M? Or here's this Crumbling Vestige. You can throw it away if you'd like.
You can light it on fire. I don't know.
I mean, it's a good example of the Path and Serum Visions, because those like there were literally times where I was like, I was kind of on the fence about going to F&M, but I'm like, oh yeah, Serum Visions is the promo. I'll actually go. Like that's pretty sweet.
And I'm sure they can't just literally print $10 cards every time.
No.
But they can definitely print better than like unplayable draft chaff. It might see play in Standard once we need more colorless sources after the Painlands rotate. Sure, maybe this is the long con, and then you'll be playing a deck with 4 of them and be like, man, I wish I had F&M promos, but
Yeah.
I don't know, just making these like weird nickel like F&M promos just seems bad for everybody.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I agree. It's not exciting, and you want it to be.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, the last thing is sort of a fun thing. There's been this quiz that's kind of been making the rounds here in the Magic community.
We all bought the new Magic edition of Cosmo.
It's
How to Please Your Planeswalker.
it's not at all.
That's not
what
the
it
one?
is. No,
I got the wrong one.
This basically is a quiz hosted by Gas MTG, just gasmtg.com, and it's which Hall of Famer are you? Now, we all took the quiz, so we won't, spoil the questions for you or anything like that, but it was fun. I think I got Frank Carson. Dave, what did you get?
I also got Frank Karsten.
Mike, what did you get?
Stain.
That's not how this works.
I got Uncle Randy.
Oh, no. I think they just profiled you. And profiling's wrong.
I literally said that to the computer when I was done. I was like, is this because I'm fat? Like, is that all you see in me?
Did you look at the top of your laptop and like a little webcam light was on? You're like, no.
I will say, I think the best part on Twitter are all the pro players who couldn't get themselves. Like, I answered the way I answer, and I couldn't get me.
I think the best is that a lot of people got Chris Bakula, who's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's a fun little quiz.
Yeah,
definitely check it out.
Take it. If you got, it's only like 5 or 6 questions.
Yeah.
It's not at all long, and it's
very fun.
It's very, very funny. So
It's on gasmtg.com, which I never heard of before, but the name is Gas. So
very, very much so. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Well, that's everything for the community. Before we slide into the competitive segment, do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Comic Town. Over the weekend, they have a couple of awesome events. On Saturday, they have a modern Star City Games IQ invitational qualifier. And then Sunday, they're doing a Legacy 1K Expo. Now, the both events will start at 10 a.m. and are $30 to enter. Obviously, if you win the IQ, you do get an invitation to the Star City Games Invitational, as well as other prizes to be paid out. Now, the Legacy Expo, that feeds into the Comic Town end of the year championship, correct?
yes.
Awesome. So that is another way you can qualify.
Yeah, so it's top 2 slots.
Yep.
Will qualify for the classic. I don't know what it's called exactly, but the classic championship.
Yes. And that's going to be held at the end of the year. So definitely want to lock up your slots for that. It's a very high stakes tournament. Definitely limited slots of participants. So it's something you want to be a part of. And I know Dave's already queued.
I am already queued. I queued for it before I even knew it was a thing. they hadn't announced it yet.
And I know he's trying to light a fire under Mike and I to get qualified as well.
Listen, if you're local to Columbus, you should definitely try to qualify for this tournament. It's a 32.
If it was in a couple hour drive,
Yeah,
like
it's
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Columbus area or drivable distance, yeah. So that tournament, it's a 32 player, invitation only tournament. It's in December, I believe, December 11th. And even if you go 0-8 or whatever, I don't know how many rounds it's going to be, you still get $100. So you just show up, you get at least $100.
Yeah.
Plus you get to play a suite like what's multi-format, correct?
Yeah, it's
correct.
standard or modern.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of these chances we'll be talking about on here. These expos, in addition to the classics, come out to them.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you. The prizes are great. They're going to be a lot of fun. There's some really sweet formats coming to the expo, including no ban list modern later in the year and team trios.
Yeah.
Team Hatcher and Step.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
I'll let you guys play with somebody else. I'm already queued.
Oh,
So if you play with somebody else, then all three. If you win, you all 3 get queued.
You just got to block.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. Just
Yeah.
blocking now at this point.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
We want to mess the math up.
We have to have the best team, and it's clearly all 3 of us. Well, mainly it's probably you two, and someone else, but you don't get a choice, unfortunately.
Hey, you and I have made the finals of more Team Trios events than Dave has.
That's true.
So
Fair enough.
I haven't played Team Trios since.
you are about this high off the ground, no taller than a
I'm
tumbleweed.
trying to think. I think it was literally Odyssey Block.
Wow.
Was the last time I
okay.
played
Team Trios.
Team
is
Trios, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Anyway, so let's go to our competitive segment. So Over the weekend, we had a couple of GPs, one in Manchester and one in Minneapolis. We're going to go ahead and start with Manchester. They both were standard. Manchester had a total of 1,697 players, so almost 1,700. It was won by none other than Raphael Levy, playing Green White Tokens. So, Green White Tokens still a very competitive and strong deck. When we take a look at the top 8 here, I know that there was a lot of Bant Company actually showing up in Manchester, which is, that deck has kind of fallen off of the radar a little bit. But, we tune in and kind of see it show up here, which is, fairly interesting. We also have, the Bant's, Bant Rights deck, which is sort of the 3-color Eldrazi Bant deck that doesn't play any black, but plays things like main deck, Reality Smasher. Another green white list, again Bant Company, showing up 3 times.
Yeah, I think there are 2 Bant Companies, a Bant Rights, 3 green white tokens.
Yeah.
A blue red Ulamog deck, which we'll let Mike talk about that one.
And then
and a
Grixis.
Grixis. Yeah.
So why don't we talk about the blue red Ulamog deck? This is a deck that.
I'm sorry. I wanted to mention Raphael Levy's list real quick.
Okay, we'll start with the winner then.
Because I feel like there's not too much to talk about these green white tokens list except for in Levy's list.
All right,
because he made a pretty interesting gambit in his deck.
Oh yeah, is he not playing red? I assume
he's not, but he is playing 2 Chandra Flamecallers.
Oh wow,
with 0 red mana sources in the deck.
Bold.
But for Oath of Nissa as your way to cast it.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, this seems really, really sweet. Now, I will say that I could see this backfiring. Like if you just try to do this again immediately next week, because then if people pay attention, then the Dramoka's command targets may change. Okay, I'm gonna make you sack this Oath of Nissa, just so you know that's happening. But this seems really, really sweet. That's such an interesting play because there's literally 0 ways for him to get this out there without the Oath of Nissa. So you could definitely have games where it's just you have Chandra and you're just waiting on the Oath of Nissa.
Yeah, I will point out though, at least when he got to the top 8, the deck lists are known, and there were 2 other green white decks. Now I don't know if I think he did play a mirror in the finals, so I mean. They knew that he had no red mana.
He does have 2 Stasis Stare and Evolutionary Leap, so he did have ways to protect against the command.
Usually the Oath of Nissa is the one that does the blocking for that, but now it's oh no, I can't sack my Oath of Nissa. Oh yeah, get rid of this Evolutionary Leap. Who needs that?
Yeah, honestly, it's fairly standard outside of that, all the way down to even just the 2 Lambert Pacifists to sort of toe in the ground. But I saw the Chandras and I went through and counted the deck to make sure that they weren't just 2 cards added to the list or anything. So it's really spicy, and I thought that was pretty sweet because. How many times in the GP do you think he got to 6 mana and then tapped out to play Chandra and his opponent just lost their mind? Just what?
I mean, that's definitely something you would not expect. I've been playing humans since the format turned, and against green white tokens, you're just flooding the board. You're not holding back. At least especially game 1. You're not really expecting Tragic Hour against game 1 or anything like that. And it's just they just play a Chandra and sweep your board. You just lost. I mean,
yeah. How about the sweep play where you don't even have to -3 your Chandra? You might be able to -1 it to pick off one of your guys, and then flip your Avacyn to do the rest for you, so your Chandra gets to stay at a higher loyalty level too, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that against the rights decks too is probably pretty sweet. I feel like that's a place where you really want Chandra, since yeah, seems pretty good.
How about this play? You have Evolutionary Leap in play. Play Chandra and your plus. And then you sack the tokens after you do attack. Get some,
man, yeah.
Get some creatures.
I mean, obviously, we're talking about all these energies. They do exist, but this is good for the GP. It might be a little bit more loose going forward, but you might still be able to pull it off.
And you might just get people. That's the best part. Your humans opponent, they're playing into this, especially game 1. They are selling out into this, and then you're just I have this Chandra, and then they just melt into the table. They're just
yeah, all right, yeah, they're just dead. one last thing on Raph Levy, he definitely had a flight that was supposed to leave basically in the middle of top 8, so he played his first match as quickly as he could, and then he had to run off and reschedule his flight. I think that happened right before the finals, so that would have like sucked if he lost in the finals.
Oh yeah.
But at least he won, so it's kind of
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, it made it a bit worth it. So, should we move into the blue-red deck? This is
Let's shall we?
so this is a deck that's sort of been making its rounds. A few people have noted it, saying that they've done particularly well with it. Was it Ray Perez Jr.?
Yeah, so
Who did pretty well with
yeah,
it?
he did really well with an IQ with it, and was sort of trying to keep it hush hush. But of course, the IQ list got posted.
Yeah.
And then Adrian Sullivan actually wrote about Mono Blue, which was similar. I don't think quite as effective, but like a similar idea. And I had sort of been like looking at the deck since I saw Ray's list and was sort of putting things together. But then Ali Andrazi did really well with it at an IQ, a super IQ at day 2 of GP Charlotte, and that's where he wrote about the deck and made some changes. And I was like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger on this. I want to play it out. I actually played it at FNM last week and went 4-1 with it. I get to cast Confirm Suspicions, and that's all I think anybody needs to know about this deck. Essentially, all the deck is trying to do is it's not really a ramp deck.
Depp.
Ramp Johnny Depp.
Right.
But it's actually just a control deck that wants to make all of its land drops and make all of its lands work for it. It does play 4. Where's that? Hedron Archive as like its only real ramp spell, but at the same time, it's also a spell that just like you can cycle through at the end of the game to draw cards, so it works both ways. But you see 4 Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, 2 Spawning Bed, 4 Majoring Network here, in addition to a lot of blue-red duels and some islands. The Majoring Networks, I think, are really, really sweet because they allow you to sort of just charge up to the Ulamog and sort of ignore your opponent. But it does play a lot of counter magic. For Clash of Wills, and he's playing 4 Void Shatter, which I thought was interesting because a Spell Shrivel sort of been the deck, the card of choice, mainly because you really do struggle sometimes to have 2 blue sources. But obviously he did well with it, and he had some a couple 1-ups. He had an Epiphany of the Drowned Yard that I wasn't playing. He had a Brutal Expulsion.
That one's pretty sweet.
It's pretty sweet. But also plays a Kozilek's Returns and Spatial Contortions, and then 3 Drowner of Hope and 3 Ulamogs, and then 2 copies of Jace Unraveler Secrets and 2 Chandra Flamecallers. So you really just want to be the dirtiest deck you can, and so you're casting Haymaker threats. Drowner of Hope really stabilizes the board, but also like suspiciously ramps you into Ulamog without your opponent knowing it, where they just play that and they can't attack, so they pass back to you, and then like you sack your Scions and play your Ulamog, and then like they're really far behind. It can't go. It goes without saying like how good Ulamog is in this deck. And I was really excited too because like I was trying out some changes. I really wanted to play a Ruin Processor as another way to trigger Kozilek's Return, so I played one in the main at FNM, and then looking at this list, there he is in the sideboard. Hey, buddy. The deck is really sweet. It can also like sort of warp post board. You get to play Fevered Visions in the sideboard and like Reality Smashers. So you can really change the game plan depending on the deck. So it's really sweet. It does struggle with some of like humans can be rough. You have to play very, very carefully against humans. But luckily, most of the other decks aren't really that aggressive. There are a couple cards that can be tricky to deal with. Lambent Pacifist can be rough if you don't have an immediate Clash of Wills or Spatial Contortion because you don't have a lot of turn 2 plays. And Duskwatch Recruiter can also be tricky for the same reason because when it flips, they can get it too far ahead. But if you can control the early game, then there's not a deck in the format right now that has a better late game because even like opposing ramp decks that exist, and they do, the green-black decks have been seeing a lot of play, they really crumple to counter magic. They don't have a lot of ways to interact outside of some discard spells. So that's, this deck has, I think, currently the best end game in the format. You just have to get there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, this is the only deck in the format that's playing counter spells. And I think a lot of people, like, especially if you haven't played against something like this, like, you might just not be playing around, like, Clash of Wills or whatever. So it seems like you can get a lot of value off of, just being able to actually counter their collected company or whatever. I think, like, now the jig is kind of up because, top 8 of the GP. So, a lot of the maybe free wins that you would get off of people who don't know what's going on, you may not get those anymore, but we'll see. I mean, it's definitely doing something that other decks in the format are not doing.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing for the deck. Yeah, for sure, being known, you players will start to play more specifically around counter magic when possible. But at the same time, they still have to just play their spells, or they lose to Ulamog, which is sort of the nice thing about this deck. I will say though, that, yeah, I agree. Where its place in the metagame is so unique right now that I think it's a lot of decks they'd have to do a lot of finagling to prepare for this deck, and it may not be worth it. So I'm excited to play this deck at least for a little while longer. It's sort of, I just want to play Jason Raveler of Secrets. We've gushed about this card so many times. Like, that card just puts away games. But like, I played against Seasons Pass at FNM against a really good local player, and like the exile effects on the counter spells were really relevant because like then the Seasons Pass didn't have enough targets. And then, like, you just, like, landed Jace and had counter magic up, and it was like, okay. And then, like, ultimate Jace, and it's like, all right, I'll concede now. Like, I literally can't do anything, and it's like, okay. And there's a lot of those sort of pseudo black-green control decks that kind of fold when a real blue control deck shows up. It's like, okay, I see what you guys are doing, and this is cute. I'm going to counter spells now. And it's like, whoa.
Just like the way it's always been. Like, the control deck that plays counter spells is always going to be the one that doesn't, so...
Even bad counter spells, like, looking at the decks, like, Void Shatter looks better, but, like, try to cast them in this deck and you may get frustrated. Like, I thought Spell Shrivel was going to be terrible. Spell Shrivel is great. Like, people just want to curve out in this format, so, like, you can just Clash of Wills them, and then Spell Shrivel them, and then, like, bounce their guy with Jace, and then play an Ulamog, and that feels great. I also have not played with Shrine of the Forsaken Gods before. That card is disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, you get a lot of cool plays where, like, you get to hold up a lot more mana than your opponent thinks you are, especially with things like, again, like Spell Shrivel, if you were playing that, but or even like Brutal Expulsion or Kozilek's Return, because it's like, I definitely got people by having 2 mana up and then casting like a Spell Shrivel, and they're just like, how did you cast that? I'm like, well, this is a colorless spell, so I can pay 2 for it. And they're like, oh, or same with Kozilek's
like
Return.
Mana Leak
like,
them.
they're like, try to like go out with it, and you're like, all right, I'll Kozilek's Return. And they're like, but you only, it's like, yeah. Or Spatial Contortion when you only have 1 mana up. Oh my god. Oh, it's so good. So there's a lot of sweet interactions in the deck. I literally like just like had been messing around with it and then started playing it. I played it like I said at FNM, but it sort of scratches an itch for me that is unique in this format. So I'm excited to keep playing it, and I'm glad to see it do well. Kind of glad to see it do well.
kind of glad, kind of sad. One of those in betweens.
Congrats, Matt Hunt.
So, looking further into the, 9th through 32 list, we do want to give a shout out to Magnus Lanto, who finished 16th with Naya midrange. And then Martin Mula, I think is how you properly pronounce it.
Mueller.
Playing Mono Blue Prison. Okay, yeah, I'll take a gander.
Yeah, we should talk about this one. This one is pretty crazy. So he finished, 25th?
Yes.
Trying to get there.
So his deck tech for this was actually, if you go to the GP website for this event, his deck tech was really enlightening. Because I think when you look at this, you might not recognize what the most important card in the deck is. Do you know what the most important card in the deck is, Dave?
Is it Jace's Sanctum?
Jace's Sanctum.
It's 100% Jace's Sanctum. I know. I understand. We'll give you a second to Google it. All right. Did you find the 4 mana blue enchantment? The one that is worth 10 cents for Magic Origins? You did it. You found the right one. Yeah, this deck is sweet. It just wants to play all the Jace's Sanctums in the deck, and to play Days Undoing, and then allow you to play all the spells you drew off the Days Undoing the next turn, because they all cost nothing.
Yeah, you also get to do stuff like end of turn, Rise from the Tides, and then like cast Days Undoing to make them shuffle all their stuff back. Oh, not Rise from the Tides. What was the one? What's one that returns all their... Engulf the Shore.
Engulf the Shore.
Yeah, Engulf the Shore to return all their creatures, and then Days Undoing to make them shuffle.
He said you could also, like, the way that, because of Part the Water Veil, like, you can set it up so that you can cast Part the Water Veil and then Days Undoing in the same turn, and end the turn, but you still get to take the next turn, so you get the first turn with 7 cards.
Oh.
So I felt kind of bad, though, because he also said in this deck tech that they'd had this deck sort of sitting on the shelf for a little while, and they thought it was really sweet, but it was so dependent on Jace's Sanctum that they were afraid of Jamoka's command. So they said that they needed to wait for green-white tokens to exit the metagame a little bit, and they thought this was the weekend that it was finally at its lowest.
Well,
It won both GPs. So congrats to him for still finishing 25th, despite looking at the top 32 and seeing a metagame that actually had a lot of that deck in it. But
I mean, we even take a look at like the top day one archetypes out of the top 100. It's the top. It's 20. 20. People show up out of that top 100 of day one. So yeah, it was fairly popular.
But like this deck was like with 3 Jace's Sanctums, 4 of the pages was free because you paid 2 blue and then you untap the 2 blue. You got things like Hydrolast that become a blue, and then for each Sanctum you got to like scry. So you would Hydrolast for 1. And then scry a couple times, and then draw a card, and then cast Anticipate for 1, and then scry a couple times, and then Anticipate. So once you were going off, you always had gas. And eventually, you won with either A, Rise from the Tides. They only played 1 because Days Undoing makes that sort of an awkward win condition at times. And then they played 4, Part the Waterveil, as a way to go out there. But the sideboard plan was sweet too, because it could board into 4 Jace and 4 Thing in the Ice. That's like, okay, well, this deck isn't playing any creatures. I'm going to board all removal out. And they're like, all right, well, here's my Thing in the Ice. And they're like, why? Why did you do this to me?
I just appreciate that it has 24 islands. It's like, if you thought 18 planes was crazy, try 24 islands.
Yeah. Awesome. So, moving on.
Blue's back, baby. In the weirdest way imaginable.
Yeah. So, moving on, let's go into GP Minneapolis. It was standard. It had a total of 1,530 players. And as Mike said, it was won by Green White Tokens, piloted by Alex Johnson.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah. And then, when we take a look at the top 8, this is where we see a lot of the Bant Humans decks. And these decks had, started to become popular on Magic Online, and now have, sort of broken into the pros to, the pro scene, as it were. We see Yuya Watanabe was playing it.
Yeah, he ran it back. He finished just outside the top 8, I believe, in Tokyo a couple weeks ago with the same deck.
Yeah.
So he kind of debuted it, ran it back, top 8 at this time.
Mm-hmm. We also see Andrew Ellenbogen playing it. And then, is there another one here in the top 8? Yes. Matt Severa was also playing it. So 3 actually top 8 of this tournament, which is pretty, pretty interesting. And then we have 2 copies of Green White Tokens, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
yep, and a White-Black Control.
White-Black Control. And then, last but not least, a couple of Humans decks. One of them being piloted by Max McVetti, the Star City Games Invitational champion, most recent Invitational champion.
He's playing the same deck at the Invitational, too.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, pretty much the same deck.
Yeah.
Looks like the 4 Battlefield Forge and then sideboarded Needle Spires is becoming more and more stock at this point for the Humans.
Well, sometimes you don't even really want to sideboard those. You just want to play main deck and then play some red spells. Like we see coming from Shota Takao, the second place finisher of this GP, playing, white, red humans.
He's playing actual white red humans.
Can we call it pink humans?
Yeah,
Sure. Pink fleshy humans. Correct.
Yeah.
Humans plus a couple of goblins. Just a couple. Just to get them motivated. Get them out there.
Reckless Bushwhacker, he's like the wild card.
Yeah. He's like the guy you invite to the party. You're like, well, I don't want him to show up, but when he does, I know things are going to get crazy.
It's going to get interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, so we see, more of the dedicated, red splash of the 4 forges as well as the 4 needle spires. And then we see 3 Abbot of Carol Keeps along with 2 Reckless Bushwhacker. So that's like your 1-2 punch, as it were. Sometimes you're just like, we'll see what happens. And then, sometimes we see that, even having availability to give Reckless Bushwhacker to, your Humans deck is fairly powerful itself. So, Yeah, I kind of like this little bit of more of an aggressive lean to the deck.
Yeah, something that we talked a little bit before, Dave and I had about some of the grindier matches, especially with like the company decks. And I watched Dave play a match at F&M that like literally his Wright's opponent was able to bounce his whole team pretty much every turn. Now, Dave, to his credit, stuck it out and got there. It was actually really sweet. But he was essentially playing like 5 or 6 humans each turn to try and like counteract this. Like, okay, these ones aren't castable, these ones are, so let's play these. So I could totally see how in this format, if your opponents are going to try and lock you that way, then like the turn where your opponent essentially thinks they have a turn off, right? It's like, okay, well, he can't cast these till next turn. And you're like, or like these can't attack until next turn. I can use my mana this way. And you're like, hold on, not so true actually. These are attacking.
I'm feeling a little bit reckless.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna wreck it.
I like well, I like the fact that Reckless Bushwhacker lets you. So a lot of times, like if you're playing against some of the control decks or the Languish decks, I guess we'll just lump them all together. You want to be holding back something so that you don't just get completely wrecked by it. But the problem is normally, you're holding back like, oh, I'm holding, an Expedition Envoy and like, a Thraben Inspector in my hand, which, if that's your plan, like post Languish is to play, 3 power worth of creatures, it's not really going to be that intimidating. But if you're able to, play Expedition Envoy, then Reckless Bushwhacker and smack them for 5,
yeah,
then that lets you keep up the pressure a little bit. And then also the fact that you have the main deck Needle Spires also gives you a little bit more durability there.
Yeah, and like something they have to do into their math. Like if they're going to just cast Languish, can they survive being hit for 4, right? Or 6 if you haven't always watching him play, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the crazy thing about that too is that like Needle Spires is really sweet with always watching because it can hit for 6 and then still cast a 1-drop afterwards.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
I actually got to do that at FNM. It was sweet.
Does it feel great?
It was like that. Like, so I played the deck at the Star City Classic in Indy. And I never activated Needle Spires, but I actually got to activate it a bunch of times at FNM. We got to do some cool stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty nice. I mean, it doesn't come up it doesn't come up a ton, but it is something that you can do. And this list is pretty sweet. I guess the downside is you only have the 8 red sources, so it is definitely possible to get some of these red cards stuck in your hand, and that definitely is deadly for a deck like this that just wants to curve out.
I mean, I think the downside is you're playing 4 tap lands now, main deck. I mean, I think that's the inherent downside with this deck as well.
Well, that's true, but it is playing 20 lands overall instead of 18. So if you think of it like, okay, like two of those lands are like spells, it's not as bad, but it's still like...
Knight just really wishes it could find a nice Sacred Forge.
Yeah, no joke.
Or Foundry, I should say. Yeah. What are you going to do? No, that deck was sweet, though. Glad to see sort of humans make a comeback, being a little bit more resilient and seeing a metagame form. I think, Dave, you implied that you were worried that the company decks were sort of going to take over, the right decks were going to take over, and I think we've seen the metagames remained robust, and I think Standard's in a really good place.
Yeah, I'm not shocked to see humans come back. I mean, Standard's been like this for a little while now, where it's kind of cyclical, where green-white tokens has been pretty good, but humans can put up a good fight against it. And I think the match is actually pretty close. And humans is pretty good against all these other random rights decks, just because you're able to pressure them, and they have to spend a lot of their time just kind of not dying. So they're not really able to combo off because you're putting them under so much pressure, and they can't sweep you or anything. But then, you have these other decks, these black-white controls or Grixis that are playing Languish or Radiant Flames that obviously are
sort of
counteracting.
Hit both of them, interestingly.
Right. Yeah, so... I think you're going to continue to see the metagame kind of shift back and forth between, I guess, control. And...
I think it's just interesting. Like in the standard format, we don't have red aggro. We kind of do now, though.
We have close,
but we have a true aggro deck. We have mid range for sure, but we have a couple of true control decks and a combo deck, like a legitimate combo deck. Like I feel like this is a really robust standard metagame.
Yeah, my biggest problem with it right now, and I think it's fine. I do enjoy playing standard right now, but the only problem is like there's one aggro deck.
And that's fair. It. I mean, again, I think you could still argue that like Mono Red Eldrazi is hanging around, and I think that is an aggressive deck. You know, if it curves out, it definitely curves more aggressively than like a regular mid-range deck, and certainly has all of the card disadvantages of an aggro deck. But I agree. I think we're all hoping that Eldritch Moon gives a push to one of these other tribes. Like, all right, vampires, here's the card you were missing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or here's zombies, here's the card you were missing. Here's your lord, or here's blank.
Yeah,
and
werewolves.
maybe that's it. Right.
Like,
or maybe the deck already exists and it's in the top 32 of this GP.
Oh,
you like how I did that? I am so professional.
It's a good segue.
It is a good segue. So, looking at the top 32, we do have Brad Nelson showing up in is it 10th place? I thought he got 9th.
I think he's 10th. He's 10th.
Okay, 10th place with white-black control. Reed Duke at 16th with green-black Seasons Past. Justin Cohen, 17th with Duskwash Ramp.
And those two played a really awkward match in round 14 to a draw. Knocked each other out of top 8 contention. And I thought that was interesting, because that definitely seemed to me like a match where I thought somebody would concede. But nope, they just went for it.
Yeah,
so,
that's
double daggers.
I mean, Reed Duke plays every game of Magic, regardless. So I wouldn't see him as being the person to concede. So
they play according to the write up, they played a 40-minute game one.
That sounds awful.
It sounds awful, but also sounds about right looking at these deck lists.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not surprised by it, but man, awful, just terrible. So I think the deck that we are, kind of getting to is the Blue-Red Flyers deck.
What a name!
Yeah, played by
Skies.
none other than Tomoharu Saito, who you might know from being a very prolific Magic player and also releasing a bunch of deck lists when new sets come out. He has a very popular hashtag around that point in time. And, his deck is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. I mean, so they say Blue-Red Flyers, but I think a lot of his deck actually relies on the power of, what's that sweet card? Fevered Visions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think, the power of that card, along with, having a bunch of efficient, cheap creatures, kind of really pushes this deck into being, competitive. As well as having access to a manland and Wandering Fumarole. And, just having a really kind of potentially fast gameplay. I mean, you're playing Gold Knight Castigator, and you're also playing Exquisite Firecraft, which, guess what? A lot of people are playing right now.
Yeah. So, say what you want about Saito. A lot of people don't like him, because he's been suspended in the past for some, possible shady stuff, but the man knows how to build an aggro deck.
Yeah.
And this list is about as streamlined as it gets. Do you want me to just run through the list because it won't take very long?
Because it's all 4-ofs?
Yeah, it's literally all 4-of.
I mean, this looks like one of the deck lists that he would, publish after
This looks
Shadows.
like a dual deck list.
Yeah. So, 4-dimensional Infiltrator, 4 Rattle Chains, 4 Stratus Dancer, 4 Gold Knight Castigator, 4 Exquisite Firecraft, 4 Fiery Impulse, 4 Clash of Wolves, 4 Spell Shrivel, 4 Fever Visions. Lands. Sideboard, 4 Goblin Dock Dwellers, 4 Roast, 4 Negate, 3 Seismic Rupture.
3 Seismic Rupture.
Well, you can't have 4.
Seismic Rupture is great too. It doesn't kill any of your creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't know about the power level of this, but it can almost play almost like a flash deck.
It's a flash deck, yeah.
Yeah, you have, Infiltrator and Rattle Chains are, flash creatures, so you can hold up your counter spells, and if you don't play anything worthwhile, and you're like, okay, well, flash in this 2/1.
Infiltrator can bounce itself, not easily, and not he only has a couple colored sources, but it does have that option.
Yeah. But yeah, this is pretty cool, and I think it really puts to good use the Gold Knight Castigator. Yeah. I know he had mentioned that it was probably the best card in his deck, so.
I'm all about a giant, hasty, flying red beater.
I think the best part about this is Morgan and I, independently, were already hoarding cards to this deck and not realizing it. Morgan's like, yeah, I bought a play set of Castigators last week. They're just a good price. I'm like, yeah, I actually have 6 Rattle Chains sitting in my box because I'm like, I'm going to hang on to these cards just in case. I don't know why. I was just like, Saito was talking to us.
It's funny, too, because we said it time and again on here that really the way that you can attack this format is through flyers. There just aren't that many, and that's why cards like Grifspoon are so powerful in the White Weenie deck, because it allows you to, fly over all these Sylvan Advocates and Lambhold Pacifists and all these things.
It's,
that people
one of the best forms of evasion you can have right now. And that's why, like, Grifspoon gets, such good comparisons to Rinker. So, because Trample, obviously would actually not be very good in this format. There's a lot of big butts, but not a lot of things that have wings. So,
giving credit here, there a guy who's, I keep going back to our FNM like it was some huge tournament. I apologize, but it's the only standard tournament I played in recently. But the guy who split first in our FNM this week was playing Blue Red Flyers. Now he had Thunderbreak Regents in addition to Castigators. But he was like playing Dimensional Infiltrators and Rattle Chains and Clash of Wills, and so good on him.
There might be something there.
I do think now that we could live in a world of mirror matches with these decks, I don't want to play Gold Knight Castigator mirror matches. Like, I'll attack you with my Castigator, take 4, cool. I'll cast mine and attack you for 8. Oh, I'll Firecraft you for 8. Oh, like. You're going to have to, like, pour those cards out every time. But, no, the deck is sweet. Takes advantage of some cards that aren't seeing a lot of play right now, especially since Fevered Visions is such a... it's cool to see cards like that, like, I think a lot of people would look at and just be like, I'm never going to play this card. And yet it's seeing play, like, in a number of decks and 2 GPs, on different continents. So it's really nice. Robust format.
Yeah, I like this deck. I think this deck's pretty awesome. If I probably have a lot of these cards at the very least, and in all honesty,
if not, the rest of them are nickels.
It's not very expensive. Well, it might be more expensive now, I'm sure.
Oh no, people were like, "Well, you're going to see this deck all over the place on Moto because it's like 6 tickets."
Yeah, it's dirt cheap. So
yeah,
very very excited, and I might try to pick it up and just have it in the back of my pocket. Maybe try to play it at FNM. I don't know. We'll see. When we take a look at the top 100 day 1 archetype breakdown for however good this is, we do see that Green White Tokens again is the most a visible deck at 17. Then we have Band Company and White Humans being the other top contenders. So
11 copies of White Humans, 10 copies of Grixis Control. They're just trolling us now, Dave.
Yeah, they certainly are. They must have heard you and decided to respond in kind.
I do want to mention that Cedric Phillips also top 32.
Yeah.
Sort of interesting seeing out a couple of these GPs, picking up some points, qualified for Sydney. I mean, I'm just saying, he's not doing as much coverage. Making a run?
Yeah, he's not doing much coverage.
I mean,
but
from what I understand, he's both very, very thin and very, very smart, so he could do very well at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I heard those are good things.
So
good attributes.
Anyway,
if I roll a character, that's what I want.
So that's it for competitive. Let's
hold on.
Yeah. I wanted to mention one more thing before we got off the GPs,
Go ahead.
but I was going to say it was a real shame that we didn't have any video coverage, especially of Minneapolis, because that top 8 was pretty sweet and looks like there were a lot of cool decks. I don't want to dwell on it. I just want to say, I think a lot of people didn't realize that there wasn't going to be video coverage, and were like, "Wait, what? There's no coverage? What's going on?" It was disappointing, but hopefully they'll pick up the pace on that in the future.
You'd hope. So not that upset though, because that means that stupid Kickstarter didn't fund. Oh shucks. I wanted to say 2 more quick things competitive. One, shout out to the hosts of Magic the Amateuring, who, in a bit of awkward, awkwardness in general, I think they said they officially became a business this week, but then also both got pro points at this GP for the first time, so now they have to go rename the cast because they're no longer the Amateuring. I wish that joke was better, but they already released episodes where they interview pros and they call it the Pro of the Ring. So, but congrats to both of them. I also think was it Megan was the one she cashed in top 32. She's in
nice.
Or maybe not. Maybe she took 34th. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, she was like X.
That's
or X3 and 1 or something.
But she cashed.
Yeah.
So, but congrats to both of them. And I wanted to give a shout out to a good friend of the cast, and good guy in general, Matt Garcia, who is
Oh, yeah.
if you're today we're casting, it's the first day of June, the year of our Lord 2016. And on this day, on the Daily Deck List site, our Daily Deck List of StarCityGames.com, his list is being featured. Maybe the most terrible Madness deck you've ever seen in your life, but he top 8 in IQ with it. Now, I say this with love in my heart, because he himself has trashed this deck. There's 4 copies of Geist Blast in this list. I'm not going to tell you any other cards, because I know that once you hear there's 4 copies of Geist Blast in this list of a deck that he top 8 in IQ with, you're going to go look it up.
Yeah.
Hilariously, I think Michael Majors, who posted the Daily Deck List, also said that's the first card he'd cut. But who cares? We're here for fun. Congrats, Matt.
Not necessarily for profit.
But he got both. Look
True.
at him.
Got lucky. Sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Also thin and smart.
Anyway, let's move on to our question of the week. And, it's a pretty good one. We haven't had a question of the week in a while. And I think this is a pretty substantial one. It's kind of surprising we actually haven't really asked ourselves this on the podcast. I mean, we probably asked ourselves this internally a lot. But so, question of the week. Why do you play Magic? What keeps you coming back? Who wants to start?
Well, when I was a small child, I had a younger brother that was very annoying, and I had to babysit very often. And all he would do is cry and cry. And I asked the Goblin King to take my brother away. And he did. And I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think the Goblin King existed. So I had to fight through the labyrinth to get to my brother. And when I was there, I had to play a game of Magic against the Goblin King. And I didn't know what Magic was, and I lost.
But
he told me... Nice. He told me that if I learned to play the game well enough, one day I could challenge him for my brother back. And I've been on that quest ever since.
I hate you. Because at the beginning of the story, it made a lot of sense. And then you said Goblin Queen King, and I was like, I've done been hoodwinked. So, thanks.
You're welcome.
Did you want to tell anyone not a fable?
In a minute.
Okay.
I gotta relax. Go ahead. Someone else answer.
All right, I'll go.
Okay.
So I play Magic because I love the competitive aspect of it. I mean, I could probably go on for forever talking about why I play Magic, but I think mostly for me, it's the competitiveness. I just love playing in tournaments, and I love the challenge. I also love the camaraderie and the friendships that I've made through the game. I think even if you have a bad tournament, if you're hanging out, having fun, it's still going to be a good time. I think the fact that we're constantly getting new sets and formats are changing, and even just all the different ways that you can play, just keep it fresh. It's not like another game that it gets old. I remember one of the old. Was that the old? I want to say, it used to say oh, you never play the same game twice or something like that. It's pretty true, but yeah, I don't know. It's just constantly evolving, and it's always interesting to me, and it's always fun to find new strategies and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Technically, only 2 sets had Evolve in it. I want you to understand that I actually think I made myself sad because I remember that David Bowie passed away, and now I'm kind of sad.
Good job.
I'll never get my brother back.
Yeah, I guess I kind of fell through for you, didn't it?
Well, I don't know. I don't even remember what he looks like at this point. That's not true. Adam, I'm sorry. I know you listen.
I'm pretty sure he would enjoy that.
No, I hope yeah. I guess my answer is similar to yours. Obviously, Morgan and I think really fill the shoes of humongous nerds. Dave, you have your nerd cred, you do, but not quite.
Not as big as you guys, but yeah.
When it comes to gaming, though, and I don't mean just card games or board games, all of it, all of the idea of gaming. Played everything when I was a kid. I had video game systems and got very, very good at them. And games that I could beat and be done with and master, that was it. They were done. I never want to touch them again. There's only so many games I've gone back to throughout my life. And my dad sort of pushed this on me, sports the same way. I just, not that I'm a master of any sport. Don't take that for any idea. But in all honesty, once I found Magic, this is a game that Like even when I was doing really really well, still didn't like even when like I was playing like and I thought like to myself like, oh, I'm better than better than my brother, I'm better than my dad, I'm better, like this kind of thing. Like then there was always somebody I could go play against who would just kick my teeth in, and I would be angry and just like frustrated, and I didn't understand why, and that for a long time was what kept me coming back to the game. Once a lot of friends got out of it, I sort of did as well and didn't have time for it. But it's one of those games that like when I came back to it, like just played a couple games and I was like, "All right, this is what this is. This is great." And like having like an actual steady progression in it has been great. Like obviously, we've talked before. I've made a life for myself in Columbus. A lot of it based off of obviously my wife being here, but also like this game has made a lot of relationships, so like that is nice. But the reason why I actually played the game, what keeps me coming back to the game, is the game itself. It's sort of cliche. Like you said, like no one plays the same game twice. Well, the other cliche with Magic is that it's the best game ever made, and I think it really is. If you look at Wizards, for all the flaws that they have as a company, for all the ridiculous mistakes that we sit on this podcast and laugh about and criticize, we're still suckers and we're still sitting here because of how great the original idea that Richard Garfield had, and not just Garfield. Like the game has changed since he come to inception. We have so many rules changes, but the people who make the game really care about it and continue to care about it and create a compelling game. And I don't know, I'm hooked. I don't know if it'll ever go away. Even like, I mean, I doubt I'll ever be able to I doubt I'll ever continue like playing random PPTQs all the time once I move into parenthood. Well, Dave as a model says it's still possible.
It's tough, yeah, but you can still do it.
But like the game itself, like I think I'm always going to be like, if somebody said like, "Hey, we should just play Magic," I'm going to be like, "Man, I love that game."
I'm probably always going to have my cube no matter what, even if I stop playing competitively. It's like, hey guys, cube night, yeah.
I mean, like I think like a lot of the things that you guys said kind of resonate with me as well. But I definitely I like playing Magic because it can be an adventure a lot of the time. I know that since I've started playing Magic, I've definitely been to a lot of more states than I think I ever would have gone to, and I've had a lot more experiences and stories than I ever would have had I not played Magic. I'm fairly antisocial. I'm not someone that actively seeks
This is the guy putting a podcast on the internet.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so that's a little bit different. There's sort of a layer of separation. But I'm typically someone that's a homebody. I don't mind staying at home and just hanging out and not doing anything, or playing video games or something like that. It's something that is where my comfort zone is. And Magic kind of pushes me out of that. It pushes me into, being in a huge room with lots of different people and forcing interactions. And it's good. It's a healthy thing for me to do. And I really appreciate Magic for doing that, as well as, again, taking me to a bunch of different places that I never thought I would, go or want to go to necessarily. So, and again, like, the friendships that I've had have, been something that I haven't really had before necessarily. Like, you always have your high school friends and your college friends or what have you. But I mean, like, the friends
your cat friends.
Your cat friends. But I mean, like, the friends that I have in Magic transcend the game. Like, they're not going to be friends that go away once I stop playing in a certain facet or something like that. I start going to competitive games or stuff like that. It was the reason why I became friends with people, but it's not the reason why I continue to be friends with people, which I think is hugely important. And I don't think I ever would have found this core group of people that I now count among the people closest to me without this game. And I think that's some of the weird stuff that Magic can give you that you don't really expect. Like, you expect to be entertained and broke because of the game, but you don't necessarily expect to find people that you want to have in your wedding, or that you want to know for the rest of your life, or in some capacity, who you trust more than you would have expected from people you just sit down and play a child's card game with every week, or do a podcast with every week. So it's something. It's weird, and I play Magic because it's fun, it's enjoyable. It gets me out of the house, and gets me out of my fiance's hair, which I'm sure she appreciates at certain times.
I don't know why you spend so much time in her hair.
But it's definitely something that I've gotten a lot out of, more than I ever thought I would. So that's why I want to keep pursuing that. And that's what keeps me coming back, is because I still have so much left to learn, and whether I learn it or not is kind of irrelevant. It's always just the journey that I take to get there.
That's from the heart, Morgan.
I try.
He always does better than us at this.
I know.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just better at making things sound good.
I have an English degree. Like what?
I could write that, but I could just zone out. It's the old school sort of Will Ferrell debate moment.
Snapping back into it.
Right, correct.
What happened?
I'm just now coming back to consciousness, basically. I think that's an important thing to kind of take a look at and see why are you doing this? Because there are times when the answer is you shouldn't be. The answer is this is destroying something or being harmful to you. So it's always important to kind of self-evaluate why you're doing Magic or whatever it is that is a passion and a hobby. And I think that if you don't have those times to take a self-inventory of everything that you're doing in your life and why you're doing it, then it'll lead you down some negative paths.
Yeah, I think that's important to touch on too. I think it's very possible to become so consumed there were a lot of things, but with this game as well, I think it's easy to just spend all your time either playing Magic or thinking about Magic or whatever, and it's important to have that balance in your life, especially for me having a family and everything. I try to keep that balance as much as I can. I still love playing, and I still if you ask my wife, I spend a lot of time on Magic still, which I do. But I try to keep that balance, and still do what I can and try to stay competitive. One thing I just wanted to say for me personally, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, but Magic is also an artistic output for me. I'm not an artist. I don't do I don't paint or do anything like that. I don't make music.
I don't paint them pretty pictures.
No.
You've not put color on paper.
But for me, either designing a sweet deck or even just playing with unique cards. I like playing with beta cards and stuff like that. That for me is that's my personality coming out.
It makes a lot of sense.
I mean?
You reflect yourself within it.
A form of self-expression.
Right, right. So that's on top of it just being a game, that's kind of an artistic expression, I guess.
I think you could take that a couple of different directions. For me, it's really satisfying. And maybe that sounds terrible. It's really satisfying, unrolling the at your end stuff playmat. That makes me feel happy. Sorting a deck and sleeving a deck makes me feel really happy. There's an OCD part of my brain that loves the sorting and order that Magic comes with. I can walk into my house on a Friday when we're going to go to F&M. The house will be destroyed. Then sleeve my deck and it'd be in order and be I'm good. This is in order. Everything else, whatever. Which, read into that if you want to. I don't really care. And I think, Morgan, you mentioned you touched on some very strong components, and I would agree with you on that. And I alluded to this idea of the sort of transcendent relationships for sure, but also the adage the play the game, see the world. Definitely, you're right. It's true. I mean, we've gone all up and down the East Coast really, and the local states here and all the way up to Chicago, just state wise, but also
internationally.
I was lucky enough to be able to go to Spain, and I'm pretty poor. I don't think I was going overseas unless Wizards is paying for it. Dave here, he's got to go to both directions.
Yeah, got to go to Japan, Ireland, Amsterdam. Yeah, I definitely would not have gone to those places had it not been for Magic.
Yeah.
So,
and those experiences are definitely the ones that that keep you coming back. That's my whole extended family and on my wife's side, who they vaguely know that I sometimes play this card game, are just I heard you went to Spain, and it's just I did.
Yeah, in a way, it's almost like justification.
You're not wrong.
The people that that don't really know about the game, And they might think like, oh, why does he spend so much time on this? And I don't get it. And it's just like, well, got to go to Japan.
Yeah.
That's
there are
pretty
some
sweet.
rewards. There are some rewards.
It definitely helps legitimize the time you're investing.
And it's like not that that's like the only reason why I'm playing, but like I think at the time like I really wanted to qualify for the Pro Tour. Like this is back, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, whatever at this point. But now at this point in my life, it's like, okay, I've done that, and that's not as important to me. It'd be cool if I qualified again, but I'm not really actively trying to do that. But that's a nice little bonus. If you play enough and you're good enough, then that's a nice thing that you can strive for. But you don't even have to. I mean, so many people just play just for fun. Like people
And you can still do the see the world part even if you're just playing for fun. Like,
right. There's like nothing stopping you from doing so except your bankroll, which obviously is certainly a factor while playing this game. But I think one of the fun things that is awesome when you play Magic is you are like almost instantaneously you get better at other games too.
That is true.
Which is
the point that people hate you.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, and you kind of look at games in a completely different way because I mean, Magic is a rule set. Like if you learn Magic, you've learned a very comprehensive gaming rule set when it breaks down to it, and you'd be surprised how many kind of things that just gets applied to. I mean, there's direct correlations with other card games, of course, whether that be actual like poker. But other like digital card games, Hearthstone, things like that, where the tool set that you've developed just directly applies into a lot of those things. It also can mess with you with certain games when things don't work the way that you think they should. But just like other like board games and stuff like that, like you'd be it's very surprising when someone's like just hands you a new game and you're like, "Yep, no, I know what I'm doing," and then you just beat them. You're like, I've already min-maxed what I need to do. Thank you.
I've definitely like found myself like when I'm playing like regular cards, like I'm playing Rummy or something like that. I'm like flick my cards back and forth, like what am I doing? People don't do this.
I told you guys this story before, but in my job, I had an interaction like that where people were playing a card game that was Winnebago. You may know it by a couple of different names, but essentially you play in two sets of teams, and then you have to your team has to put together a four of a kind, and then you have a tell that you have to like. Only you and your teammate know the tell, and you have to get them to recognize it and say it before the other team notices you're doing something ridiculous. And like I watched them play this for a little bit, and I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Oh, because you like draw a card at a time, but it's all revealed." So like I sat down like with this other person, I was like, "Okay," and then did like the flick shuffle, and like within like 3 minutes, like boom, and there's like Winnebago, and it's like, "What are you doing with your hand?" And I'm like, "Shuffling it." Like this is a game of misdirection, right? And they're like,
"Yeah, why aren't you doing?"
They're like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, like come on," and just like got up and like I don't need to play again. I know that like at least two of them were just like, "What?" And I'm like,
you just dropped the mic and then walked away.
Like I've mastered your little game you have here.
Or my sister-in-law, who's a little like my wife's younger sister, she was really excited over Christmas. She got this like card game version of Monopoly that you can play very fast paced, and we played it a couple of times. And like after the first game, I knew the game and won it 3 times in a row to the point where I was told I either had to stop playing or to handicap myself to continue playing. And I do that a fair amount to the point of like pure frustration where it's like, I don't know, stop asking me to play games with you. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I probably could be nicer about it, but I don't want to be.
Yeah. That's also the downside is we know how to play a lot of games very quickly. We're also very good at them
and competitive.
Which we want to win. So we're kind of mean.
Kick mud in kids' faces.
Yeah, basically. But I think that's another interesting thing that why you keep pursuing it, because it keeps you sharp. And I think like that's a really nice thing. Is it's really weird that the sort of mental the mental exhaustion you get after you get done like a weekend of Magic. Like if you go to a GP or like an Open, something like that, and then like you just get home after that Sunday and you're just like, man, I am so tired, and you just don't want to think about anything. Like that's one of like the worst feelings. Just like I'm dead.
Whenever I go to like an Open or a GP or something, I come back and like my wife is always like, "Why are you so tired?" I'm like, "All right." She's like, "You've just been sitting down all day, not doing anything." I'm like, "Okay." Imagine just taking a test for like 8 or 9 hours straight.
But yeah, that's
basically what it is.
All right. But yeah, that's a great question. Anyway, let's move into what's happening over the weekend and the wrap-up. So we have Star City Games Atlanta, which is standard. We have GP Costa Rica, which is standard. No coverage for GP. No video coverage at all.
It's cool. It's going to have like 500 people for the current counts.
Is the Open going to be covered at all?
I believe the Open will have coverage.
Perfect.
But no GP.
We also have our second week of the regional PTQs happening for Eldritch Moon over the weekend. So if you are going to one of those...
Well, you said Ocho Moon for some reason?
Ocho Moon! No.
Ocho Moon.
Eldritch Moon.
That's why they haven't shown the symbol for it yet. It's just an 8.
So good luck to anyone attending those over the weekend. Again, Comic Town will be having 2 awesome events. Saturday is going to be the Modern IQ. Sunday is going to be the Legacy Expo with a 1K payout. Both are $30 and start at 10 a.m. Player registration starts at 9 a.m. So make sure you show up and register before 10. Again, that's pretty much everything for our show this week. You can follow us. We are at @YourEndStep on Twitter, or you can do a quick search on Facebook for @YourEndStep, or email us @YourEndStep@gmail.com. Please, if you're on iTunes, please leave us a review. We really do appreciate it. Helps us get a little bit more visibility on the iTunes algorithm or what have you. Also, if you do download us from MTG Cast, please explore some of the other shows they have in there. Like we already mentioned, Magic the Amateuring, and give them a quick listen. And wish them, good job on their recent pro point acquiring, as well as prize acquiring. It's pretty awesome. But that's everything for right now. We do appreciate you, and you have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll catch you next time. Bye.